wrapping up her work day at the end of her day, and she gets a very important email. A funder report is due, and that's tomorrow. Now, the funder is asking for some impact metrics for the beneficiaries that they have been tracking across different programs. But now Mira has a challenge. Next slide, please. The data that this funder is asking for that spread across different tools, different sheets, different contexts. Her data is across Excel sheets, it can be across Kobo, it can be across Survey CTO, and many other things. So, just pulling it all together to a clean sheet is going to take some time. Next slide, please. Okay, so she is feeling pretty frustrated right now. What does she have to do? She has to merge the data, she has to clean the data, she has to transform the data, she has to duplicate the data, and plenty more things before she has a clean spreadsheet that she can look at. And even after that, the job does not stop there. Once she has this clean spreadsheet, she needs to ensure that she brings out the story from this spreadsheet that the funder is actually asking for. That resembles the impact that her NGO has made. And that's when it strikes her that, oh, I need to spend so much time on all of this. How about if there was an automated, clean, effortless way for me to get all of this data on a single place so that I could actually spend time on weaving the story that is important? Next slide, please. And that, folks, is the power of the data lifecycle. Now, the data lifecycle is an instrument that can help you go through all of your data processes such that you get to focus on the story that your data actually intends to tell, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Next, before we go on to the next slide, Anusha, could you please trigger the poll on the screen? And I'll request folks to interact with the poll. We'd love to know what you think the data lifecycle means to you today. Let me know when the poll is up and you can see it.
Yeah, the poll should be up. I've started getting responses. Wow, everyone's pretty fast here. We have 14, 20 responses already.
Oh, awesome. Can you look at the responses? What are we looking at?
Um, uh, 22, oh wow, more than half, almost like 75% of people here have heard of Dalgo before. And for most people, the data lifecycle means collecting and visualization of data. And for fewer people, it's about understanding how relevant or useful the data is and understanding the different types of ways in which they can manage data.
That's really interesting. So you're saying that most people have said that data lifecycle is collecting and visualizing data. Is that correct?
Yeah, oh, hold on. I think the maximum responses now is on the journey data takes before it's actually useful. That's the response that I'm seeing. Maybe I think we've now got all responses. I'm going to end the poll.
Okay. Thanks for that, Anusha. If we can move to the next slide, and thanks, folks, for interacting with the poll. I think this sets up really well, us up really well.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. So, folks, just to begin the session, we'll quickly tell you what you should be expecting in the next one or so. A lot of you know about Dalgo, and we are not going to be focusing on Dalgo today. If you want to know about what the platform is, you'll probably wait till the end to find out. This session is going to be about, as mentioned, the data lifecycle. What the data lifecycle means, right from the basics to figuring out how it relates and is contextual to your journey, your mission, and your vision. This is going to be a really interactive session because Anusha and I will both be moderating the chat as and when things go. So feel free to ask your questions and we will answer each and every one of them before the session ends today. So, with this, let's get to the next slide. All right. So, every time we think about, or if we think about the beginning of all of our data journeys, we must have all made the mistake of thinking about data journeys as a combination of collecting and visualizing. So it's a simple game. You collect the data, it comes in your system, and then you visualize it. But that's actually not true, as a lot of you have responded in the poll as well. So, what does reality look like? The reality, as we'll see over here, is actually more complex. It is going to be like a game of basketball where there are multiple players involved doing multiple things with data, such as collecting, transforming, storing your data, visualizing your data. But as you've seen with Mira's example, visualizing is not the end game. The end game is getting it ready for that funder report so that they know what your data is telling you, the story. So that is the essence of the data life cycle. Next slide, please. The data lifecycle is essentially, like a lot of you might have captured, the journey of how raw data goes through different stages to be combined, to be contextualized, and ready for you to rely on it to take decisions. Now, how does this happen? There are 6 steps to the data lifecycle, which we'll talk about today. Next slide, please. All right. So it starts with planning, moves to storage, it starts with planning, moves to collecting, then there is storage, then there is the transformation of data, then there is the visualization of data. And finally, which is the most important step, that there is the acting of data. Most importantly, what you want to see in this slide is that all of these stages are not linear. They're actually very cyclical, which means that the strength of your overall data is very much dependent on the individual strength of each and every stage. So, if your visualization is not strong, you might not be able to act well with it. And hold on to this thought because we'll keep reiterating and showing you how one weak stage could strengthen or not strengthen the whole pipeline further in the process. Let's start with the first stage, which is the planning of data. Now, data planning, pretty simple to understand, right? Data planning is figuring out why you want to collect said data and what purpose it serves. For a lot of us in the room, this might feel like the most obvious step because we are already collecting data, we are already visualizing it. But what happens once you have collected data, but not all of it is relevant to you? You stand the risk of becoming someone on the right hand side, someone with too much information. To frame it in the context of Mira could be looking at 5 spreadsheets to find that one donor data that is really important to her. She might be looking at countless columns. If your data planning is not right, you could be collecting too little or too much of data, and that could lead to downstream issues for you. Now, very simple reflection exercise to do, as we'll come across in the next slide, is asking each of or looking at a dashboard that we look at every day and looking at the dashboard and asking the dashboard, hey, what if all of the data that is on this dashboard disappeared tomorrow? What will happen? That will help you understand what data is really important from that dashboard and what is purely noise. Let's contextualize it in Mira's case. If Mira has all of her data disappeared today, then what the two questions she asks herself is, what do I lose in the process, and what continues to work irrespective of whether my data is there or not? Mira will probably lose information about the beneficiaries that her organization has reached through time and the impact of it outwards. She may not be able to tell that story. She will have that story. Her organization and different stakeholders within the organizations will have that story, but they might not have the data to corroborate it. But what will continue to work? All her programs will keep working. Her impact will keep happening in the ground. So, this is a very important lens for us to look at our data and really trying to understand what are we collecting that is important and what are we collecting that is a good to have. When with this, I'll go to the next stage, which is the data collection stage. Anusha is going to take us through the next few stages. So over to you.
Great. So, thanks, Tati, for the introduction. So, we're going to move to the next stage, which is the data collection stage. So, now that you know what data that you need to capture, something that's absolutely important for you, without which you cannot progress with, with your day-to-day operations, that's kind of like critical information that you need to capture. Once you have a sense of that, is when you move towards understanding how do you start actually working with it. You know what you need. Now, how do you collect it? Right. So, this is the next step of it. And a couple of questions, we've just put down a couple of very crisp questions on what NGOs need to think about before they start collecting their data. And we're just going to go through this process because we are having this as an introductory session about the data lifecycle itself. So it might be repetitive for some of you, but there might be some new questions that come up and some new important points that come up for you as well. Couple of questions that you need to ask immediately is, how are you collecting this information, right? So in terms of survey design, are you collecting the data in the right quality that you'd need it? For example, if you're collecting information on dates or like people's names or regions, one thing you need to keep in mind is how are you going to use this data downstream? If it's not collected in the right format or you're not keeping enough data validation rules in place and the survey design is not great, then immediately that's going to cause additional effects on when you start analyzing or making sense of the information. So that's, of course, the top priority for you, making the survey as usable and easy to adopt and use for downstream data analysis as well. So as much as possible, make sure that you can reduce the incidence of missing responses or the wrong type of format, ensuring that you don't collect duplicates, some sort of rules to make sure that does not happen. Making sure that you're collecting data at the right granularity. You might like start collecting data at not at a beneficiary level, but you might be collecting it maybe at an organization level or at a program level. And later on, you might realize that, oh, I wish I had something at a better granularity. I wish I was collecting something more frequently. That's something that you should think about when you're designing your surveys itself. Next is looking at the tools that you're using. Now, this is a slightly more complex concept because a lot of NGOs might be collecting data for different reasons. So I'm just going to put this in the context of some like a health system or a health related NGO or even a hospital, right? So a hospital, typically when we go to the doctor, they will ask us to create a file or ask us if they already have a file, have we already visited before? And they'll collect some basic information about us that will not change at all. And on subsequent visits, everything that we have, anything that was noted down during that visit will be part of the same file. This is something that we call as a case management system. So you already know that there is this one person and they've come multiple times to the same doctor and they're trying to see how has the situation evolved over time. So for situations like this, you might want to think about something that's a little more complex than just a Google Sheet or a Kobo form. And that's where case management tools comes in. But in most cases, for most NGOs, what we would want to capture is something like baseline, midlines, and endlines, and for which there are a lot of tools out there that does a lot of good sort of conditional skip logic and this sort of analysis where you're able to quickly compare between two different states of the program itself. So identifying and figuring out what kind of tool you need to be collecting for data for data analysis downstream is something that you definitely need to think about. And of course, it's not just going to be one tool for every single type of data that you want to collect. It's very possible that organizations are using different sources, right? You could be using Google Forms, but you could also be using a survey CTO. You can also just be capturing information on Google Sheets or, collecting interview, doing focus group discussion and just noting down points on a Word document. It could be as simple as that. It could be as complex as a case management system like Avni or I think a lot of you might be also familiar with Comcare. So that's also something that that can be done with data collection. I did see a question on the difference between Kobo and what Dalgo does. Since our focus right now is not on Dalgo itself, we'll get to that towards the end of the session, but we will address all of the questions towards the end. Moving on to the third point on who is collecting the data and are they trained to collect the information. This is specifically critical because a lot of tools have different types of ways in which they're collecting information. So making sure that people are trained to, check the right boxes, making sure that they're not skipping through questions that are critical for analysis. These are all very important things to think about when you're designing surveys and even like deploying them in places where you want to collect information. So making sure that that's happening is also an important question to be asking yourself. Now, finally, data safety and data security. This is recently become very, very important given that DPDP Act is also going to be implemented and it's going to be a requirement for a lot of NGOs to start following certain principles and best practices for collecting data. Data safety, this is like an umbrella term. We want to make sure that you are collecting consent when you're capturing information, especially personally identifiable information. When you're storing personally identifiable information, you have to make sure that this is not shared anywhere.
you're minimizing the amount of data that you're collecting. You're not collecting too much information that's not required. So these are all principles that there are detailed documents on how you need to be thinking about data minimization and privacy itself. But this is also part of the data collection processes where you're thinking about how are you collecting the data, and are you collecting only the things that is absolutely essential for your organization to do any sort of decision making. So this is on data collection. We'll move on to the next slide, which goes to data storage. Now, this is, I think it's a very interesting concept because something that I've noticed happen a lot when we're working with like bringing data together and analyzing data is that data is never always in one place, right? So what happens, let's contextualize this in the example of Meera. What would happen is if she's asked to make a specific report, suddenly she'll realize that she does not have access to all of the data that's required to make this report, right? There might be different, if she's working in an organization that has multiple programs, the program lead is going to be the one that's holding all of the forms, all of the data that's required. So she has to make sure that she has access to each of these Excel sheets or like CSVs, and she needs to have access to the latest version of these sheets. And because it's one different people handling or owning the data, it'll take a lot of time for her to get access to each of these things as well. And also, I think a problem that usually happens is when we're asked to share data, we immediately try to clean it up a bit because not everybody who's asking for data needs access to all the information. Like we don't need to share things like phone numbers or email IDs if we're sharing like granular beneficiary level data, right? So we'll immediately delete a few columns, create a new copy of the same Excel sheet, and then share it with whoever has asked us for it. Now, this is going to create complications because like you will never know what is the latest version of the data. You'll not know which is the best shareable version of the data. And it's just going to be a headache to manage and bring together, even if you want to analyze information down the line. Right. So this is why we typically kind of like talk about having a centralized data storage solution, which is kind of like a place where all of this information is encrypted and stored in a secure place, and it becomes like your single source of any sort of truth that you want on data, right? So any information that's collected on Kobo Forms or Google Forms or any custom app that you're using to collect data needs to all be pulled and brought and put into one place. Even if it's completely raw, if it's unusable, we just know that it's all sitting in one place and we're not having to share it or download it from somewhere, keep it in a drive, have it in different places. We don't want to do any of that, just for data security, privacy reasons, plus also for ease of access itself, making sure that the relevant people only have the right access. And a way for us to be able to do this is through some data extraction tools that exist. Not everybody would need complex versions of these data extraction tools, but having some automation that exists that pulls information from Google Form data or like the Kobo results or any sort of like case management tool that you're using, pulls it all on a regular basis and puts it into the data warehouse is what we call like an extraction and loading process. Right. So when we talk about data, like data analysis, something that we forget is that there's a process called ELT, which is extracting information from the source, loading it, putting it into like a secure place where all of the data stays, and then doing any sort of analysis once it's in that secure place. So this is something, a very simplified version of something that's a lot more complex, but definitely like a useful thing to think about. Having like a centralized place to store all of your data and also extract it on a regular basis. Moving on to the next stage, right? So we covered planning, then we looked at collection of data, then we looked at storage, and what's next is transforming the data. Now, transforming, I know, seems like a very fancy word for something that's very, very simple, which is basically just cleaning your information. And I'm going to pause here to do a quick activity where I'm going to show you an Excel sheet, and I want everybody in the chat to kind of point out what are the issues with this Excel sheet. Okay, there's going to be a lot of issues on this. We're going to time this, keep it exactly to 1 minute, and figure out like how much you can identify within that 1 minute. Okay.
We can do faster fingers first as well. Folks can unmute and share. Timers on.
Missing data, the formatting of the date, and yeah, those two things. to begin with. And also the gender, somewhere it's M and somewhere it's inconsistency of data reporting.
Great.
The state names have also been pretty much inconsistent. And
Yeah, I think that's pretty much captured most of it. Thanks, Abhinaya, and thanks everyone in chat for adding things as well. So let's go through the issues that's there with the data, right? So one thing is the names. So some of these are in lowercase, some of these are in like camel case, and this is going to create issues, right? And see, this one's also like in a completely different spelling. So what we would want to do is first standardize all of these names and make sure that there's a reference list and say that it should only fall into these categories, and we'd have to like transfer this to the right formats. Perfectly correct. Second thing is there's one duplicate entry here, right? This entire row, this specific beneficiary is exactly the same. Now that's if we don't clean this and if we don't think about duplication, that's going to cause double counting of the results. Then somebody pointed out the male, female, one is M, one is F, one is female. Again, having some rules when you're collecting data itself would fix this. But if you already started collecting data, what do you do? So that's another thing that you need to look at. Again, age validation, somebody had pointed that out. You have to make sure it's only within a specific range. This was the spelling mistake. Now, again, there's like differences in spellings, but you need to validate and make sure that it's only one of two different spellings, right? So that you can actually filter and analyze and do more with the data. Again, negative values, which is not possible. My anomalous information, basically. Yeah, so these are all different things that are wrong with Excel sheets. And these are all things that Meera is going to end up having to do overnight for her to get to the reports that are needed. But there's an important thing here. A lot of times we might end up doing this task manually every single time, right? So like, for example, if a survey is continuously collecting information and you're having to report or create a report on the survey end of every month, you'll end up like downloading that survey from wherever it is, the forms from wherever it is, the responses, doing the same process of cleaning it and then updating it on a PowerPoint or something like that. So the idea is that we shouldn't have to have it so difficult. It shouldn't be that we keep repeating the same process every single time, and then we encounter new issues that we never would have even thought of, right? So there is a way for us to make sure that this process is automated. You don't have to download it from the source every time. You can just ingest it, like we said, like have the centralized storage system where it comes to on a regular time period, and then you transform, you act like basically you clean and standardize the data so that you can directly start using it. So there is no like absolute right way to do it, but if you do kind of want this to be easier for you to start working and make the data analysis ready, there are different ways in which you can go about transforming the data. Of course, a lot of things that people will typically be using is formulas on Google Sheets, replace functions on Google Sheets to make sure that everything is standardized. Using Stata, for example, I know that working on research and a lot of like research concepts and statistical tests is something that organizations will do to find out like how measure impact itself. So Stata is, I know, a tool that many people are familiar with. Having data validation in Sheets, of course. So these are all simple ways to do it. But the reason why this is still in stage 1 of the transformational maturity is because this is a repeat process that you'll have to do every single time. You're downloading it, you're putting it onto an Excel sheet or CSV, you're pulling it into a different tool, and then you're kind of like rerunning that every single time, right? It's not a completely automated process. Not a wrong way to do it, but it's just going to be a little more time consuming. Then we have the second level of maturity here, which is having scripts, app scripts and things like that. So I don't know how many of you might be familiar with Google Sheets app scripts functionality, but essentially what it does is it automates capturing data from certain sources by running a script in the backend. It's similar to VBA on Excel, but it's a little more advanced because it works on Google Sheets itself. So it allows you to automate certain parts of this. So it will let you kind of add formulas and make sure that when you're copying data from the source and putting it onto a sheet, it adheres to certain rules, and it kind of reduces a little bit of the process. But the only thing it'll need is a little bit of technical experience in the backend, and changes every time like it fails the tests, right? Like it doesn't, like suddenly you see some random value that you haven't accounted for, you'll have to go back and change that, which is why it falls under the medium level of transformational maturity. Finally, we have the advanced. And there are, I mentioned ETL and ELT as a concept, which is extracting information, loading it onto a data warehouse, and then working on transforming and cleaning it. And a couple of tools that you could use for this. One is Dalgo. Dalgo is one of the tools that does this entire process for you. DBT is a tool that we use in Dalgo also to kind of automate this transformation process. So what that does is it does this entire thing. Like we just need to set it up once, right? We place certain rules of what is accepted values for a specific type of variable. And regardless of from which source that specific variable is coming from, that rule is still set in place. So anytime that the rule is not being met, we will know it because there will be an error that pops up and we can try to fix that specific go back and test why the accepted values are not being met and go back and fix it. But it's going to be a single setup process. That is, you don't need to keep doing this every month or every week. And which is why we kind of, when we're handling larger, like as organizations grow, as you have more and more forms that you're collecting, doing this process on sheets or app scripts is not going to be sustainable. So we kind of like advocate, as you grow and start using more and more data, we kind of advocate moving on to some process that's a lot more automated, because that will free up your time doing these sort of repeated tasks and start thinking about doing more with your data. So just bringing an example of an organization that we've worked with before, which is Stir Education. So they actually used multiple data sources to collect information from all of these sources. Some of these you might be familiar with. I'm sure a lot of organizations are using SurveyCTO, Zoho, and also any custom apps or tools that you are using for collecting data. And typically, the more and more different sources from which you collect information, the more difficult it becomes to consolidate it and bring it all into one place, right? Like in a funders report, you would just need the high-level KPIs. It seems like a simple analysis, but coming to those high-level KPIs requires information coming from like 40 different places in most cases. And that's like a really long process, and doing it every month is not really sustainable. So this is something that we helped, and this is what we do with NGOs as well, as part of Dalgo. We try to optimize this process and make sure that this is not like repeated. You don't have to do that same thing every month. At least things that are repeated activities can be automated and brought through the pipeline, through the data lifecycle, from bringing the data from the collection sources, putting it into a warehouse, cleaning it up, and then making it into analysis ready tables. So that kind of reduced time from weeks to just an hour per month to prepare that data. And from this point onwards, it becomes easy for you to do any analysis on this clean data set, right? So let's go back to the Mira example again. Again, like I said, there is no right or wrong way to do this. You can even start with a basic Google Sheet, but it needs to be scaled in a way that makes sense. Coming back to the Mira example, now that your data is cleaned and it's transformed and it's ready, you will now start getting questions, right? So Mira has like a bunch of different questions, but the difference now that she's gone through this entire life cycle, the difference now is that she has to get these answers, or she is able to get these answers within minutes, right? Because the tables are created. So if anybody asks her how has things increased, what are the dropout rates, what are like specific KPIs that people ask, she should be able to get to those answers instantly. But the goal is not for her again to go and reference and then bring that answer to people. The goal is to change behavior in the people who are asking these questions to make decisions itself. So what she would have to do is make sure that this information is communicated before people even ask it to her. It's just communicated, right? So she needs to change the behavior of people who are using the data and make sure that they are coming to access a place where they can look at all of this information and get all of their questions answered without like asking somebody repeatedly and then that person spending hours and hours trying to get the answer. Even though it's easy to get, it's still if it adds up, right? If there's 100 different people coming and asking you a simple question, that adds up in time. So bringing it together through automated reports or dashboards and live dashboards, especially if you're collecting information on a regular basis, that is something that Mira can start thinking about. Her data is clean, so she can easily start like building out dashboards and bringing information to the users in a more visual way, which is easy for them to understand. So a couple of things to think about when you are looking at building out dashboards is how are you telling the story, right? So you've identified a dashboarding tool, you know what kind of KPIs need to be represented, but that's not sufficient. You'll have to think about who is actually using the data, because it's never usually just one user. It'll be multiple different people. There'll be one person who's just like, it might be a field survey who's collecting information, and all they need to know is within their specific region or their program or their site, they will just want to know the responses or the progress that's being made on their specific location. So that's like something that somebody like a field surveyor would want to know. But at the same time, a program manager might want to know what's happening within their project itself or multiple projects that they're maintaining. Again, at a leadership level, they'd want to know what's happening across multiple programs. So everybody wants to see different types or different aggregations of the same data. So having it all clean in one place and then building out one single dashboard is not going to be the solution. In most cases, Mira is going to have to build out multiple dashboards. So thinking about the person who's going to be using these dashboards becomes important. And here's where there's also the idea of what kind of tools can we use to make sure that we can build out multiple dashboard. How can we make sure that people are only able to access their specific dashboards and not see all of the dashboards that we've developed, right? I'm sure this is something that a lot of people have come across. Like for example, Power BI allows you to like create 2-3 reports, but then if you need to share it with specific users, they also need a Power BI account and they'll also like have to get access to the same dashboard. So role-based access control becomes like an important topic to discuss as well. And if people want to like only see things for their specific regions and things like that, we'll also have to think about how do you have row level security within dashboards. So there are tools that do this, and within Dalgo we have internal Dalgo dashboards itself, and we'll get to that, but we also use an open source tool called Superset, which does a lot of these the access control part of it as well. So yeah, so that's something that you'll have to think about when you're looking at visualizations and dashboarding. Now, this is not the end of the process. I don't know how many of you remember when Stuti started, what the final step in the process was, but I am curious before we move on to the next part, which is acting with data, on which area of the life cycle would your organization want to invest more energy on? And maybe we could just bring up the poll for this. I'll bring up the poll. Yeah, you should be able to see it on your screen. Could everybody start answering that, please? Just one answer. So I'm just curious to understand which all of you think is most important or where you would like to spend more time on. Interesting. All right.
Anusha, that one suggestion I would like to give is that if you put the suggestion in checkbox, then it might be good for us to select more than one.
Ha,
But here,
only one.
yes.
Yes. We just want to know the top priority for you.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. I think we have 30 responses now, so I will end the poll. Okay, so I'll share the results for a couple of seconds. Most responses have said that they want to turn insights into action. The second most responses are on cleaning and organizing the data. Surprising that nobody has said collecting. I actually think collecting is kind of more important than any of these, because if you fix collecting, you can fix a lot of these other things. It becomes so much more easier, but it's interesting to note. I guess if I had given you the option of multiple choices, I'm sure everybody would have checked a lot of these boxes. But yeah, this is good to know. Yeah, so this is a good segue to our next, to the next part of the conversation, which is on acting with data versus sharing data. So the discussion that we've had so far is on how you can make this entire process a lot more faster and easier for people to clean their data and get to like results quickly, get to a report quickly. And once this report is shared, what's next, right? Like you have a lot of time now to kind of time in your hands to actually do more with data. Because a lot of your basic questions are being answered quickly. It's never going to stop. People are going to ask more and more questions, but this also gives you a lot of time to think about what else you can do with your data. And that's what we call by acting with data. How do you start proactively using data to start making decisions, right? How do you make data move and direct your strategies? Like you can start thinking about things like identifying trends within your data, spotting risks in your program. How can you improve program design? How can you prevent problems from happening before it even happens, right? You can actually track trends and things like that. So you can start thinking about what else you can do with your data. And that becomes like the next most important step where you're asking your data to do more, like answer more. You're investing a lot of time in it to create these reports. Now you can start thinking about how you can start evolving your design, program design, and start like working with your data to help make decisions better. And that's mostly what a lot of people have responded. So that's good. And we're just going to talk through a couple of examples of what more you can do with your data, how you can act better with your data. So I will move on to this session and invite all of you to share a couple of examples as well. What I was actually thinking is if I was asked, what would an NGO want to do if they wanted to do more with their data? I'd say these examples, right? Like use more advanced statistical models. How do you if you have 100,000 beneficiaries, how do you start segmenting them or classifying them to see what kind of interventions get the best impact, right? So you're asking a secondary level question. It's not just about like the scale of impact. You're asking, what can I do better to improve impact? What are the different categories that actually deserve more intervention or more like sort of attention? So deciding those kinds of things would come under the advanced statistical models. Qualitative data, I feel again, is a very under utilized method of analysis because I know that a lot of NGOs are capturing information on, they're capturing a lot of feedback information or text information, unstructured data. They're taking interviews, focus group discussions, but there's no like formalized way for them to team this and get this as analysis, as like information for them to improve their programs. So that's another thing that you can start thinking about. And now with LLMs being huge, it's become even more easy to classify and get insights from text information itself. So that's like another thing that I think that NGOs might be interested in. Another thing is predictive analysis, something that I mentioned before. How do you start preempting problems before they even happen? You can see historical trends in data and start thinking about what are like typical things that happen, what are pitfalls that I can avoid if I design my program better. So things like this is secondary level questions that I would want people to ask from their data. If you have any ideas of what could you do more with your data, if you sort out the reporting process, the more like the direct reporting, standard reporting that you need to do, put that in chat as well. That like just to understand like what else that you would want to do with your data. If you have any ideas, I'll give it a minute, but we can maybe after a minute we can move on to the next part of the session, and I'd let Stuti take over there.
Thanks, Anusha.
Cool.
All right. So let's move on toward the conclusion. All right. So let's bring Meera back into the picture. You met her around 30 minutes ago, and now you went through the journey of the challenge that she had in the beginning, right? Which was, to summarize, what story do I want my data to tell, and how do I get it to, say, a funder fast? But a funder is just an example. That story is as important to a funder or more important to our programs, our needs, our context, and our realities more than it is outwards. But where do we go from here? Ravi, you pointed out very well that hey, we may have multiple challenges and we may have multiple priorities for each stage of the journey. We can't tackle all of it today and at the same time because data is not the only thing you're looking at. So we want to simplify it a lot more and we want to ensure that you walk out of this session with a plan. So we have a 3-step plan. Anusha, if we can move to the next slide. Next slide. So if you remember the first stage, which was data planning, uh, the first step of diagnosing your data lifecycle will also be similar to the planning stage, which is asking the right questions. What stage in my lifecycle is keeping me behind today from it being strong or from it making the data act worthy? Just to simplify it a little more, there are 6 stages, right? All of you remember what those stages are. We want to be able to figure out for your organization which is the weakest stage today. And it could be one, it could be multiple. Considerations to keep in mind at this diagnosis period is that, okay, if I'm using a Google Sheets to collect data today, that could scale, say, 3 months from now. But having a landscape of how it would scale 6 months or even 1 year or even 2 years as your context change would help you really assess how you want to look through the pipeline 2 years from now and how it will scale up. The second slide, please. Once you have an idea, say that, okay, I am collecting my data on Google Sheets and Google Sheets is good enough for me for now. There are no complications over here. You want to be able to figure out what is taking you more time or effort to get to that acting stage. Say in Mira's example, she has her data on Google Sheets and she's taking a lot of time manually cleaning it. What she wants is a very simple solution, actually. She wants to be able to automate her cleaning within Google Sheets. The second thing to ask that Meera will ask herself and all of us will ask us is that what capability and capacity do we have to be able to do that cleaning or automate that cleaning within Google Sheets? And that becomes the second point to think about that, okay, what is the expertise I need to fix this stage that is going to have a downstream effect? What is the kind of tool I need to introduce, if not Google Sheets, in the future that will help me automate my data pipelines? And once you are able to identify what the solution is, that's when you'll get to the next stage, which is the learning and the acting and the sharing of data. Now, this, if you are able to do today, will make you realize that you are and you have trust in your data, you have confidence in your data to be able to act with it. With all of this, the idea is that most of the time, or a lot of impact that we want to be, the story that we want to be bringing out from our programs lies at the acting stage. Mira wants to spend more time figuring out what is it and how, what story she wants to bring from her data. And once you have a clean pipeline, you will be able to figure it out. So with this, we'll sort of come to an end of the pipeline session today, but we'll quickly in 2 minutes cover how Dalgo can help you audit your data lifecycle today. Next slide, please. All right. So we looked at 6 stages of the data pipeline, right? From planning to collecting to integration to transforming to visualizing to acting. And Dalgo is a platform built for nonprofits and helps you with an intervention at every stage. Specifically, our data platform, like Anusha mentioned, helps with the transformation, the cleaning of data, so that your data is reliable, combined, contextualized, and you're spending less time and effort actually cleaning it. But beyond that, a lot of us need to zoom out and look at this data lifecycle as a whole, which is also the purpose of this webinar. So if you think that you want to zoom out and really look at how you can audit your planning, collecting stages, as well as look at your whole life cycle holistically, we also have our internal team of Dango experts who can help you figure out where the weakness lies in your stage or what you can do to strengthen your data pipeline tomorrow. We'll share 2 opportunities in which you can interact or learn more about Dalgo. Next slide, please. So the first one is Dalgo's bootcamp. Now, what is a bootcamp? Bootcamps are 2-day activities, offline activities, where you need to reach out to us to express your interest for the bootcamp. And once you are selected, and if you're interested in the platform, it is a 2-day opportunity for you to come in with your data challenges, work alongside our data experts to figure out the solution to your challenges, automate your system, see it come in live within the Dango platform. We know that a lot of nonprofits don't want to invest in newer tools without knowing and being confident that that is the right solution for them. And because because we also want to ensure that you have the confidence, the bootcamp is a wonderful opportunity to come in and see if automation is the right solution for you and if Dalgo is able to offer you that. This is also a very good opportunity to explore Dalgo's data consulting path, which really helps a lot of organizations go back and assess what kind of fixes they need to make at their collection as well as planning stages as well. The next thing that we can share with you is a template, which will be a useful framework for you to go back and audit your systems. So, if you have all subscribed to the email, you will receive this template, which will help you put down where or what tools you're using at each stage and which stage is weakening your paths today. So, this is a very good framework for you to follow. Please do this exercise yourselves. And if you do think that you are stuck somewhere and need some kind of exploratory conversations or could benefit from paid consulting, then you can reach out to us and we'll have a 30-minute chat with you to figure it out. Links to both of them will be shared in the chat. If Anusha, you could drop it. And with this, we'll move to the next section, which is the conclusion. Next slide, please. So, if there is one takeaway that we want you, and we keep reiterating on this, from this whole data lifecycle is asking the question of what story do you want your data to tell? It could be different for different contexts, different programs. Do share it with us in the next 15 minutes or so if you want to stay back. But do reflect this in your context as well before you go back and audit your data systems and figure out what you need to fix. And with this, we'll move to the question and answer section. But before that, what we will do is trigger a survey poll, which will be up on your screen. It will have a couple of questions with respect to how the session went, and also for you to share your interest in the bootcamp and Dalgo's consulting if you choose to. If you are interested in some of these resources, we'll be happy to share it across with you. The poll is up on your screen right now, so we'll request everyone to fill it out. And until we do that, we can start taking in questions if there are any in the chat. Kritika, I think you have an interesting question. Um, Let me know if Ritu's answer um, has resolved a query, or if you have a follow-up, you can ask us and we'd be happy to answer it for you. We'll also open the forum up to for folks to unmute, and if you don't mind us asking, what do you think are your key data challenges today? Anyone can unmute and share. All right, Anusha, I think there was also an interesting question earlier that was shared that Ritu also responded to, which is what is the difference between Kobo and Dalgo? If you were to quickly share what the difference lies between the collection and the transformation layers.
Yep. So maybe if we have some extra time, maybe I could just go through the Dalgo platform itself quickly and show what it does. So it's also like something visually for people to reflect on um, and understand what it's capable of doing. So just give me 1 second, and I'll share my
Sure.
screen. Yeah. But also to answer the question, Kobo Toolbox is a tool that's meant for primarily for data collection. It has a very advanced system for data collection. I know that Kobo has really good ways for you to incorporate different types of conditional logic and conditional skipping questions for you to be able to capture information from the widest variety of beneficiaries and things like that. And it's also built on an open source tool itself. Called ODK. So similarly, Dalgo is also an open source tool. We typically help with hosting and providing consulting because the entire process of the data lifecycle itself, the initial setup process might require a little bit of technical understanding. So we're here to guide you with it. But like once it's been set up, there's very little intervention that would be needed from you to kind of keep this maintaining. But typically what Dalgo does is that it connects your data warehouse, which is a secure place in which you store data. It lets you connect information from multiple sources. Wherever you're collecting your data from, you will be able to add the sources here. Right now, we have over 600 different sources from which you can ingest data in. And if there's any custom sources or apps that you've built out to collect data, you can also bring that data in. We can build out like the custom connectors so that you can pull it from the source itself. So what this basically does is on a regular basis, it will pull information from your sources and push it into your warehouse. So you just have all of your data on a regular basis being captured and stored into your warehouse. And the warehouse will have the data structured format. Yeah, sorry. I hope everyone can still hear me. The warehouse will store information in a structured way, and any sort of cleaning or transformations or even like providing access to specific tables, you can do it through that itself. And Dalgo also allows you to transform this information, make it clean and usable for you to do any sort of further analysis and visualizations. So what this specific transform tool does is that once the data has been stored in your warehouse, you need to clean it. So all of those cleaning happens through these rules. So deduplications or replacing values, cleaning values, standardizing data sets and columns and information here, all of that can be set up through either this UI-based format where you can like drag and drop and add those rules that you want to put on your data to get the clean results. And the advantage is that this runs on a regular basis. You don't need to come to the platform and keep running it every month or every day or something like that. It'll just run it. And if there's something that dramatically changes in your data and you have to come and reconfigure the rules, only at that point would you ever need to like kind of interact with this. So this sort of setup process is something that we help you with through consulting. Then we have something called Orchestrate, which is like a powerful tool where you can run this and set it to run on a regular basis. So you can just say that, okay, if I'm collecting data from a source daily, it'll just update the information from that source, clean it, and pull it into analysis ready tables, which is again stored in your warehouse itself. So you just need to like click on run, set like rules for it to run every day. And once it's done, you never have to come back to it. It will keep updating the data whenever the data is updated. And finally, you can also create dashboards. So we have like the basic charting options available here where you can select, add charts, filter the data, share this information wherever you need to. All of that are options we currently provide. In addition to Dalgo itself, there's also other tools. So you can either use this dashboard, or if you have any dashboards that you use, you can just connect the warehouse to your dashboards that you use and also plug it and use it however you want to. That's basically what Dalgo does. So it goes a little beyond what Kobo does. Kobo only takes forms from that source and provides it to you as an Excel sheet and does some basic charting there. But Dalgo is actually able to integrate the data from multiple Kobo forms or even different data to tools. So sheets with Kobo with different sources come together in one place and you're able to analyze it. I hope that answers the question. Ravi, I see you've raised your hand. Do you want to?
Yes, I want to ask one question. How the Dalgo capturing the data? Should we import all the data through that .csv file, and is there any UI platform where we can put the data and all? So can you tell me that one thing?
So in Dalgo, like what we are trying to do is simplify this process for you. So if you're collecting information from one CSV, usually what happens is the same CSV might be updated in a different day. So we can, like, for example, if you're collecting survey information and that survey keeps, if you're continuing to collect responses from that survey, instead of uploading the survey, what we suggest is let it keep updating itself. We will pull from the source itself. So if you're collecting information through a form like Survey CTO or Kobo or Google Forms, from the form itself, we'll be able to ingest the data directly into your data warehouse through Dalgo. So that's something that it does. If you have information in the CSV right now, you can put it on Google Sheets or in Microsoft Excel or something like that, and we can pull it from your OneDrive or Google Drives and push it into, through Dalgo, we can put it into your warehouse. So the idea is that you don't need to keep uploading information onto a portal. You just set it up once, and then you don't need to keep uploading it every single time there's updates to the data. Does that clarify? Does that answer the question, Ravi?
Yes, yes, I understood. Basically, that this platform will help us regarding that, like visualization, cleaning, data processing, analyzing the data. These kind of things that Dalgo will help us. But
Correct.
collecting the data and resource the data from all the things do by ourselves. That how we are going to collect this data, that should be done from the organization part, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Collecting, it's not a tool for collecting data itself. It's not a survey tool. But what we can help you with is figuring out what kind of survey tool you need to be using. So we have consulting that we do separately. So if you remember the slide that Stuti mentioned, which was this one, when it comes to planning and collecting, so identifying what kind of KPIs you want to collect or what tools you'd want to use, we can definitely kind of have separate consulting conversations where we can tell you what we can use. But we come in mostly during this side of the process to analyze, integrate the data, bringing it into one place, cleaning it, visualizing it, and also doing any sort of advanced analytics. That's something that we can help with through the platform itself.